miracle. And it says so in verse 11, this beginning of miracles did Jesus in Cana of Galilee. And so I want to talk to you a little bit about the miracles, but a different viewpoint than just the fact that there is a miracle. What the miracle is about in particular. I want to speak to you on this subject today. Feet are in those holy shoes. Feet are in those holy shoes. Read with me these words together. We'll read all verses together. Ready? Starting verse 1. And the third day there was a marriage in Cana of Galilee, and the mother of Jesus was there. And both Jesus was called, and his disciples, to the marriage. And when they wanted wine, the mother of Jesus saith unto him, They have no wine. Jesus saith unto her, Woman, what have I to do with thee? Mine hour is not yet come. His mother saith unto the servants, Whatsoever he saith unto you, do it. And there were set there 6 water pots of stone, after the manner of the purifying of the Jews, containing 2 or 3 firkins apiece. Jesus saith unto them, Fill the water pots with water. And they filled them up to the brim. And he saith unto them, Draw out now, and bear unto the governor of the feast. And they bare it. And when the ruler of the feast had tasted the water that was made wine, and knew not whence it was, but the servants which drew the water knew, the governor of the feast called the bridegroom, and saith unto him, Every man at the beginning doth set forth good wine, and when men have well drunk, then that which is worse. But thou hast kept the good wine until now. This beginning of miracles did Jesus in Cana of Galilee, and manifested forth his glory, and his disciples believed on him. Miracles, miracles. How would you like to have been a fly on the wall and observe the miracles that Jesus performed? I promise you one thing about this miracle. It wasn't a strong drink. It wasn't intoxicating wine. Jesus never once validated that as a good thing. Even in the Lord's Supper, it's very clear that they don't even use wine there, because the word could be either one. Could be speaking about bad wine or good wine, meaning grape juice. But in the stories of the Lord's Supper, it's always called the fruit of the vine. Very clear on that. And so this miracle is a wonderful miracle. It isn't that he made people drunk. The story of the governor isn't, more intoxifying or heavier proof wine. It doesn't say anything like that. It's just better grape juice. Just better, more flavorful. And so, but the miracles, what are we talking about? I hope that you listen carefully. I'll hopefully give you some encouragement today. Let's pray. We'll have a special and then the message. Now, holy shoes. How many miracles did Jesus perform? Anybody have a guess? Throw a number out there. What do you think? Come on, you're pretty good at these Disney questions. Oh, so unfair. All right. Well, I believe there are 36 miracles recorded for us in the Bible performed by Jesus personally while the Son of Man in physical form. Now, the fact is, no one could ever tell you how many there were. There's no way. In fact, many of them, there's a multitude of people that are healed in any individual case. And then, at the end of John, John says, look, if we had enough ink, we couldn't have wrote it all down. If we had enough paper, we didn't have enough books. If we had enough books, the world couldn't contain all the books if we wrote everything the man did. And so I paraphrase that gently, but that's basically it. Let me give you a little bit of a rundown. The water to wine here in Cana of Galilee. The ruler's son that was healed in Capernaum. There was an evil spirit cast out there in Capernaum. Peter's mother-in-law was healed. Then there was a multitude healing. There was a great fish catch in Gennesaret. And I figure that's that way every time I go fishing. Anyway, it'd be a miracle if I caught one. A leper was healed. A centurion's servant was healed. A palsied man was healed. There was a withered hand healed. The widow of Nain's son was healed. There was the calming of a storm. The devils that were cast into the swine. There was a woman with the issue of blood. There was Jairus' daughter raised to life. There were 2 blind men made to see again. There was a dumb man made to speak. There was an invalid at the pool of Bethesda. There was the feeding of 5,000 men. That's not counting the women and children. Then there was a miracle of the walking on the water. And there was the multitude healed that touched his garments. There was a woman who had a possessed daughter. There was the miracle of the deaf and dumb man. Then there was the feeding of the 4,000. The first time I was reading through the Bible as a teenager, and I found the 4,000. I said, say what? I said, I thought it was the 5,000. I found the first mistake I ever found in the Bible. I found it. It was 4,000, not 5,000. But there was actually two times. There's a blind man of Bethesda, and then the blind man where there was spittle in his eyes, and then the boy with the unclean spirit, and there was the coin in the fish's mouth. Then there was the blind, dumb demoniac. And then there was the woman crippled 18 years. There was the man with the dropsy. There was the 10 lepers cleansed. Then there was Lazarus raised from the dead. Then there was blind Bartimaeus. Then there was the cursed fig tree that withered. And then there was the miracle ear of Malchus's ear there. Then the fish catch at Tiberias after the resurrection. Way more than 37, but that's 37 listed. Multitudes healed at a time frame, and John said we couldn't write it all down. Amen. Now, I want to put us in the crowds today. I want us to be that fly on the wall. And I want us to think about it, about all of these people and all of these situations, and how are you doing? I want to focus, first of all, thinking about it, about the woman that touched his garment. Brother Howes preached a sermon on that. It was called He Jostled. She jostled him. And it was more than just a touch. Jesus knew the difference. And remember, the crowd was thronging him. And so when Jesus stopped and said, who touched me? The disciples literally laughed at the master. And can you imagine, throngs of crowd, and they're just pressing on him and shoving the disciples and Jesus along. And Jesus stops and says, who touched me? And they laughed at him. And they said, what do you mean, who touched you? He says, someone touched me. Virtue has gone out of me. And this woman had an issue of blood. What was it? Was it cancer? I don't know. But whatever it was in her bloodstream. That's what cancer is. And whatever it was, the doctors didn't know how to heal it. And they didn't know how to fix it. And she had spent all the money she had. And no one had any answer. But she had faith in Jesus Christ and His healing. And all she did was reach out to Him in a special way. And He was able to bring her healing. Now, all the people that were there today, none of them would have wanted to have that issue of blood. None of them would have wanted to, whatever situation was going on. Can you imagine being in that room that day, and all those folks in there, maybe one of them had had a cut. Maybe one of them had a sore leg. Maybe one of them had arthritis. Maybe one of them had trouble seeing. Maybe one of them had a weakness of some type, or a sickness, or some kind of respiratory illness. And then all of a sudden they get something dropped on their head, and they look around, what happened? And they look up and they find out that some guys are breaking up the ceiling above them. And these guys take this man in his bed, because he's not able to move. He's totally an invalid, and they drop him down through the framing of the ceiling, right down on top of Jesus there, right where he's doing all the healing, and they take center stage, and Jesus takes the time and heals that man. I imagine if I was standing there with a problem and wanting to be healed, as I saw them drop this man out of the ceiling and lower him down by the ropes, I would all of a sudden say, well, my problem's not so bad as that man. I was able to make it into this crowd. I was able to make it right up here to Jesus. I was able to stand here and wait to be healed. That man had to have help to be here. I just kind of want to give you a concept that we often miss, and we often fly right by in our Christian lives. We are very ungrateful people from time to time. We really need to stop for a moment and look at the big picture. Number one today, I don't want many miracles. I'll explain that. I don't want many miracles. I've seen God do some amazing miracles in my lifetime. But I don't want them. I watched God take Paul to the point of death and bring him back. I didn't want that. I thought I lost him. My wife was quarantined at home. The doctor brought in a piece of paper that had a disease on it that went all the way across the paper. And that name was this long. And we couldn't pronounce it. And the doctor says, but he didn't have it. I said, well, how did you know he didn't have it, Dr. Heeman? And Dr. Heeman said, well, if he had it, he'd be dead. That's what I thought he had. They said he had several diseases. He had trench mouth. He had cat scratch fever, and whatever it was called. And then there was a third one, the most serious one. But anyway, they named them, and on a better day I would tell you right off the top of my head. But that was a miracle. God healed him. There are people all across this country that prayed for you, Paul. They didn't know you until that day, until we called them. They didn't know you were born yet. You were just a few years of age. 4 or 5 at the time? I think you were 5 years of age at that time. And we had just moved into the house at White Oak, so you'd have been about 5 years of age. About the time Katie was born was this time, and it was in 1998, so you'd have been 7. And so that's when Uncle Tony came and stayed with us for a little while, and you shared a room with him there. And it was a miracle, but I didn't want that miracle. When we went off to Bible college, we got rear-ended by a semi-tanker in the middle of Des Moines, Iowa, and I-80 out there on the interstate, and nearly took us to heaven. That truck hit us so hard. We had a 15-foot straight truck. You all know the story. A little rental truck from Budget Rent Truck, and we had it full of our stuff. And behind it, we had a little tow dolly with our 1987 Plymouth Colt attached to it. Boy, if I could have that car back today. 56 miles a gallon. 5-speed manual, and boy, I loved that car. Little beautiful little powder blue car, and it was a great little car. And but that car was between me and that truck, and it was the only sandwich there that gave us any kind of a buffer, if you will. And it took the brunt of that and just accordioned that car, just smashed it between the trucks, and it tore that tongue of that tow dolly off and threw it through the 1/4-inch corrugated steel bumper of that truck, and just left a big gaping hole like a grenade bomb went through there, and jackknifed the car. And the car, after the semi jackknife, car comes up back behind the semi and hit the truck. It long since left us, and we when that truck hit me, I can't describe this other than explain it other than to describe it. But he hit us so hard that back of that truck went up like this. I looked straight at the pavement in front of me like I was looking at it up here. Now it's right here. We almost flipped on our front. That's how hard that truck hit us. And sent my wife to the ER. She's 3 months pregnant with Paul. And of course, he's never been right since. But it was a miracle of God that we survived that wreck. And I told you the story. There was a fire started in the car right next to that tanker, gasoline tanker, and it hit his diesel tank and dented it, but didn't explode it. And the battery of our car was laying out on the bumper by the cables, and none of that started a fire, but there was a fire in the car that somehow somebody put out. It was a miracle that we weren't killed. It was a miracle that I didn't lose my wife and my son. It was a miracle that just 5 minutes before that accident, I looked over at my wife and I said, "I love the baby," and I put on my seatbelt. We never wore our seatbelts in those days. We just never did. It wasn't a habit that we had. But we started doing it when the baby was coming. And we'd say that to each other. "I love the baby," and we'd put on the seatbelt to influence the other one to put on her seatbelt, or vice versa. It happened both directions. And of course, my wife no sooner clicked that seatbelt than she was thrust into it like that. And I could see it like it was yesterday, as I saw her whole body just thrown forward like a rag doll when that truck hit us. And the cat that was on the dash went past me, left marks on my neck as it passed by me. And then when the truck settled down, all we heard was, and great part. There's always a silver lining to every problem, and so we hurt the cat. But anyway, just kidding, just playing. I don't want many miracles. You know what I've gotten more phone calls on in the last couple of months, last 6 months, than anything I ever got in my life? "Hey preacher, weren't you at Camp Lejeune in the years 1953 to 1987? No, I wasn't there in 53. I didn't get there until 1986. And I was there, yes, I was there during the days of contamination, of the toxic water supply. Yes, I was there. I drank the water. I was there by Tarawa Terrace where it all happened. I saw it. I saw the toxicity trucks. I saw the men running around in their Martian suits. I was there. It really happened. I was there. But you know what? I don't want to be one of their victims. I don't want to have non-Hodgkin's lymphoma. I don't want to have anemic plastomania or whatever it is, cancer. I don't want to have bladder cancer or kidney cancer. I don't want to have this stuff that eats the skin right off of your face. I don't want to have these. I'm surprised. Have trouble with children or your parents? So thankful I have a wife. I have children. I have parents. I have a church. Coupons, acquaintances, people that will join me in heaven, people that went before me, souls that are saved, lives that have been changed. I am so rich. I'm so wealthy. You can be seated there. Take your song.